basically, what's your plan to try to get jiu-jitsu into the Olympics?
In a nutshell, USA Grappling hit me up. This is not, like, I know you said it's a new thing. It's not a new thing. It's a decade old. And it was very, very poorly organized before and laughed at in the Americas. So it was random events, different companies, and different organizations, different places, very poorly advertised and very short notice. People couldn't plan.
But I've been in this for 14 years. So if I haven't heard about it, I guarantee you average Joe white belt hasn't heard about it.
So like, we're definitely hoping that it's in the Olympics in 2028 in California. So, we needed more exposure. That's what they came to us for. You know, they didn't really get any exposure from United World Wrestling. Once United World Grappling broke off, and I do believe the president is from Kazakhstan. Okay. And so it's not like he's an American in charge of this. He's not close to the media. He doesn't nowhere near ESPN. He's nowhere near Flow Grappling. So the president from United World Grappling doesn't get too much American exposure. We lead the media in the jiu-jitsu world. We are where BJJ Fanatics comes out of. We are where Flow comes out of. We are where everybody's main world championships is, right? So we need some of that help and exposure to get out there.
What is going on? Welcome back to Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. I'm sitting down with a legend in the jiu-jitsu community, Mr. Brandon Quick. What is up, dude? Thanks for coming on the show.
How you doing, sir? Good to be on here.
I'm doing great, man. So, dude, you're the co-owner of the American Grappling Federation. You're a Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt. You've been making content online for forever. I've been following you, I think, since like 2016. So I'm super excited to talk with you about our topic today, which is about getting jiu-jitsu into the Olympics. I know you're working on some of that stuff, and I'm really excited to talk about it. But first, before we get into any of that stuff, I want to ask you the question that I like to ask everyone on the show, which is, how has training in the martial arts impacted your mental health since you started?
I've been doing jiu-jitsu since the 90s. I was first introduced to jiu-jitsu in like 96. And so one of my friend's dad was training at the time already. And so I'm 42 years old. I've been training since that was about 14 years old when I was introduced to that. So I've gone through many chapters in life, as everyone has, and so it's helped me along the way for sure. I mean, I'm someone who's always gravitated and gone back to it, has to have it. I mean, it's part of my life, so I can't really say what it's like to not have it. I got freaking water on my knee right now. I got to get drinks like squishy, but we go through injuries, but I don't really consider that like not training. It's not like I'm not going to train. Like soon as the water goes down, I'm back. I'm teaching seminars. I taught a seminar. You can still teach. Still, obviously, I'm in the industry, so it is my entire life. So I can't function well without it. If I was a quadriplegic, I'd probably be involved in jiu-jitsu somehow, some way.
That's very well said, man. Like, where there's a will, there's a way, as they say.
No, I'm a huge person on when it comes to like riding positive energy waves. I'm a daydreamer, not just a dreamer, but I act upon a lot of those things. And so, jiu-jitsu is where my energy wave is, and that's where I stay.
How do you feel like it's helped you as a father, or just in other roles of your life, like maybe in business or stuff like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's father and business is two different questions, big time. But I will say this about the tournaments and certain things in life as well, too, like fatherhood or just, your job, whatever the case may be. When people say, oh, it spills over into other parts of your life, right? People say this all the time in jiu-jitsu. Oh, I trained jiu-jitsu for a while and then it spills over on the other side of my life. I don't feel for a long time, though, that it spilled over into the tournaments. I don't feel like people were literally doing their best. When we do jiu-jitsu, we're like, bang, 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 like trying to stay inside the lane, figure something out. Like you just completely airball one way, you mess up the other way. You keep trying to get better, you hone in on it. I also skateboard, and my boys skateboard, so it's a similar thing. It's a progression. You mess up, and then you finally get on, landing it. And so I think that people weren't really doing that with tournaments. We were following a traditional set of tournaments that had been done the way that we were given them here in America. and we just we haven't really gotten better. We're just now 25 years later, 30 years later, something like that. We're just now really trying to go, okay, let's make customer service better. Let's make the prizes better. Let's make the super fights better. Let's make, not just better, but let's find our, niche a little bit more, you know. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm really trying to apply it to the tournament scene, but Chris and I are not from oil money. Okay.
Right.
We're not from a super rich Brazilian family. We're not, what I'm getting at is like some of the largest companies in the world right now are AJP, ADCC, and the IBJJF. And all of those are people who come from money. And so Chris and I have worked our way up. Chris, not in the jiu-jitsu world. Chris Carlino is not a jiu-jitsu professor by trade or gym owner or anything like that. He's done apps with me. He's done all kinds of stuff from online training to AGF and just an unbelievable amount of software development, but wasn't in it as in like a teacher and I'm going to own a gym and teach, classes for a living. So Chris was a software programmer. And so we have worked our way up and to 5 events on the same weekend, multiple weekends a year. So now we're doing that and we're working our way up. So we can only make so many changes, like I don't have the CGI money. I'm sorry. Like if I could throw $1 million in multiple brackets, I would, but we're and I don't want to say we're mom and pop home. I don't even like looking at ourselves like that. We operate in multiple countries. We're moving into Brazil big time. And I think there's also an answer. A lot of things that we bitch about in jiu-jitsu, there's, they have a lot of those answers, and I know we're here to talk about it for the Olympics and all that. That was the original message that you and I had, but, so it's just another part of what we're doing, but I don't even want to give the credit to me or AGF. Once I fill that story out, I'll explain that, the partnership between USA Grappling and AGF and, United World Grappling, which is above USA Grappling.
Yeah, let's break that down for people a little bit because I know that we want to talk about the Olympics. How is AGF related to this new organization? And basically, what's your plan to try to get jiu-jitsu into the Olympics and kind of on the world stage?
In a nutshell, USA Grappling hit me up. Johnny Morgan, he's from SoCal. Maybe it was the wrestling coach at like Huntington Beach. He's a black belt jiu-jitsu. He's the head coach for Team USA Grappling. Prior in the past, this is not like, I know you said it's a new thing. It's not a new thing. It's a decade old. Okay. But more countries have grown into it and it was very, very poorly organized before and laughed at in the Americas, in the United States. And so, there would be a 2-week notice. Hey, we're going to have a qualifier here in Nebraska. Hey, we're going to, this NAGA event here is going to be a qualifier in Massachusetts. This event over here is going to be a qualifier, event over here in this city. So it was random events, different companies, and different organizations, different places, very poorly advertised and very short notice. People couldn't plan. COVID. And so this is like years before, 5, 6, 7, 8 years before, COVID. And then COVID happens. New guys take over. I don't know if you remember also back in the day, there was another organization called FILA and FILA Grappling. And they crumbled. They were a part of the spearhead, I believe, of some of them trying to push towards, national representation of athletes and pushing towards the world stage. And then, but that crumbled. And, now there's new guys that are organizing it. They're not doing it the old way. And they came to me and they were like, Brandon, help us, advertise this, help us do this correctly, help us run, tournaments. I'm like, I talked to him for a little bit. To be honest, I'm a dude who has my ear to the drumbeat of jiu-jitsu. And this isn't big on my radar. I've been laughed at by a bunch of my friends.
Yeah, same here. Like that's why I wanted to have you on the show because I made a video talking about this a little while ago and you got in there and commented and were like, oh, bro, you don't even know about the plan that's been going on. And I was like, dude, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have not heard about this and I've been in this for 14 years. So if I haven't heard about it, I guarantee you average Joe white belt hasn't heard about it. So what do you think we got to do, man, to get this organization more recognized here in the Americas?
Well, see, that was part of it. That was part of it. If you look back in the day, there was some flow grappling support. It was kind of like uh, results way back in the day that were uh, uh, from the main event. It wasn't anything leading to or Team USA or anything like that. There wasn't any media coverage. Also, it was just poorly advertised, So now that they came to us for the company that has national presence. They came to us because a lot of things click. I'm a combat veteran. The company is red, white, and blue for a reason. My partner Chris is raised by lifelong Air Force people, so we have the American spirit in our company. And, I'm also an athlete purist. I know that right now, post Olympics, this is a horrible conversation to have because of all the freaking drama outside of athletics that ended up getting put into, and some of it was having to do with athletics, but getting put into staining the Olympics, like that wasn't cool. All the drama that we had to deal with recently with the opening ceremony and with boxing and people misinformation and information all over Facebook. So I wished it had a cleaner look right before this conversation. But what I'm getting at though is the purist in terms of America versus France and France versus Mongolia and getting those opportunities to see that. We watch the Olympics because like who's the fastest man on earth? Who can throw this weight the longest? Like there's some of it's primitive sports and some of it's modern sports, but that's where records are set, and so people would love to represent the United States on their back and go into the Olympics. There's plenty of people that want to, and so we said, okay, let's hold these qualifiers and team trials for you guys. And so we held them east, west, north, central, like we held them all over. And then they actually had a video crew come out and they put us on Caffeine TV. This was not even part of it in the beginning. They got this later. So this wasn't even like part of the, oh yeah, we were just doing it purely for, hey, hope to God we break even trying to help you boys, but like we'll advertise some, we'll do a separate mat. I'll fly out a referee. You have a whole different set of rules, like we'll assign a ring coordinator and all that stuff that's on that truck that needs to be shipped there and gas and storage and all, hotels for the dudes. And so it's like, there's a lot of money invested in having that. So we supported him though, and still support him. And later on, they try to get some exposure through Caffeine TV. I wish somebody like Flo, that's our main media right now, except for people putting their own stuff on YouTube in the jiu-jitsu world. I wish they would put more behind that. You had a director that really, Anthony, he really did a good job putting together stuff on Caffeine TV. You can go look it up. It's an episode called The American Grappler, not just off of AGF, but off of the concept. And, it's almost like an Ultimate Fighter mentality type show. You've got your different athletes from different regions. You got your regional qualifiers, and then you have your team trials, just like major sports and United World Wrestling, in which United World Grappling broke off of. So United World Wrestling, the UWW, the largest wrestling tournament every single year in the world, USA versus Iran, Russia versus Mongolia. You get what I'm saying? So this is where Jordan Burroughs and people like this go to represent the United States. So the United World Wrestling is where the United World Grappling broke off, has its own rules, and holds its world championships. So it has, I'll be honest with you, like after this, go look at all the wrestlers know what I'm talking about. I'm not even a wrestler by trade, just to let you know. Never wrestled collegiately or high school, anything a day in my life. I have a lot of wrestlers as black belts as mine and students, and I appreciate it. But so don't think of it as that. I'm a guard puller. Okay. But, this is what they watch. This is what they know. The wrestlers know the United World Championships. And so wrestling.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. It's huge. It's huge.
And I think right now people don't realize that event, that spectacle, that the match, the stadium, just the way that it's done, the American national anthem being played, and whatever country's anthem being played when they win, and it's like a mini Olympics, right? And so we already have that for grappling. But people right now, their eyes are focused on IBJJF. The new kids on the block are looking for the next $1,000 bracket. Like there's a lot of attention everywhere in jiu-jitsu right now, but a lot of people don't realize United World Grappling has a phenomenal world championships. We've already been there, and we've already medaled that as a team and got champions. And some of these guys, are ADCC vets. They're Nogi world champions. Yeah, you got purple belts in there. So, you got a purple belt representing. And it's like, well, damn, dude, he went through people as well, too. He beat brown and black belts openly. It's not just like we ran out of people and we handed out a purple belt invitation. You know what I'm saying? You still got guys and females as well, too. Alex Rodriguez, off the top of my head, from Atos, Bruno Frazado's in Atlanta. That's another female black belt that she's got experienced jiu-jitsu, wrestling. I think she wrestled in college, and ADCC trials winner. Like, you've got guys and girls. And I say ADCC because that's what the hype is right now, and that's where a lot of people think those up. But if those level grapplers are over there, if Nogi world type people and world champion type people over there, so they're there, and there are some open sleepers, the guys that just come. There's guys that flew out to Pittsburgh that were from Keenan Cornelius's in California, some people pick trials because that's where they're from. Some people pick trials because that's where they think it'll be easier. Some people would just pick it because it's a cheap flight. But, we had different people in different locations all the time. And then you had the team trials in Los Angeles. And so then we had that go off, and you got your gi and nogi. That's the other thing, too, is it's gi, too, So you've got gi and nogi. They're the same, it's similar grappling. There's a lot of things that United World Grappling has done that we bitch about in the jiu-jitsu community. They don't test, right? So they test. I know a lot of people say, well, none of the guys in jiu-jitsu will make it. Okay, well, I mean, there's super high level wrestlers that make it. There's every other world, like we're just going to keep using wrestling because it's right there at that Wrestling World Championships, right? So when you're wearing your USA Nogi rash guard and you're in the same locker room as Burroughs and those guys, that's where that's at. You know what I mean? That's pretty dope. So I also think now, with a lot more involvement of children and a lot more involvement overall in jiu-jitsu, there is more pure athletes. Not everybody's a stoner, and not everybody's on steroids. Okay. Like there are people who will put USA on their back and pass a piss test, but it's also something that should be done. Right. And it's something that's complained about. So you have that comes out of there. You have the background checks, people, that's another thing they're complaining about in other areas. Obviously we don't want any kid touching and stuff like that in different background checks. So they got the background checks. They got the medical insurance, right? That's like judo and wrestling. You're a wrestling kid on a USA wrestling mat and you get injured, blah, blah, you're covered because you're at a USA wrestling mat or event. You guys know what I'm talking about with the insurance, so they've got that. Yeah. They've even got their rules. And the rules are progressive. A lot of people think, it favors wrestling, but I also think that people can get wrestling and pushing the pace, scoring confused. One thing that people don't realize, I was the first dude, AGF was the first ones to get jiu-jitsu on ESPN live. We did this in like 2015.
Really? That's awesome. I didn't know that.
It was the Super 8 man, bro. I was way ahead of the times. I had Roberto Jimenez on there. I had Clinton Rosenweg on there. I had Chris Westfall. I had Levi Miles. I had a lot of people that were up and comers back then that hadn't, got as famous as they are now, And I don't know if you've heard of Ian Murray, but he was a 17-year-old kid from.
Dude, Ian Murray and I are buddies. I know all about Ian Murray. He's a beast.
People begged me to have this kid in there. He was 17. He wasn't as accoladed as the other guys, and he freaking murdered people and heel hooked his way to a finish at 17. I was very impressed. Very impressed. I actually live close to them now. I was trained with him and his dad in Tampa now. But anyways, and so where was I with that though? That stage though, and getting the exposure with television and these kinds of things, right? That's where I think that some of these things that people complain about as well can happen when it comes like big contracts and we want to be on ESPN and we want to do this. And I've already been on the super fight path mentally, right? And I've already been on the television path. Okay. Like that was the thing that I really, really wanted to push. My father was 44 years in CBS and NBC television. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I lived in Hollywood. That's where he spent his career, was in television in Hollywood. I've been around it. So I know what it looks like to have big bucks. I know what it looks like for people to, have incredible sponsorships in different sports and different areas in television and being around actors. You can see it when you're from that area. And so, I originally was hunting that, but I was also doing regular tournaments. And so I had, Chris and I, like I said, we were men with toddlers at the time, and we were, uh, trying to get by and trying to run tournaments successfully as we expanded. So, going into what you would see with what Seth Daniels got into, Seth Daniels from Fight to Win Pro, for example, he's got a whole setup. He's got a stage. He's a former MMA promoter, rock star promoter type stuff. He's got all the equipment. Later on when you see people like Sub Hunter Pro, the guy has an MMA organization. The format for pro jiu-jitsu turned into pretty much ex-MMA people. Even if you look at the UFC, you look at ONE FC, you look at all these non-Brazilian because they have their own pro type television thing going on down in Brazil that we don't in America. You look at all these people, it was elevated stage, crowd lower, UFC type format. Everyone gets to walk out, feel like an MMA fighter. That's the development that happened. A lot of people don't realize the first year that Fight to Win Pro and was in existence, me and Seth split the facility cost, and Fight to Win Pro was in the center of AGF during the day. So we would pack our stuff up and they would have their stage left over. So in the beginning, as young entrepreneurs in the game, Seth had been in Texas. I know Seth from Texas. I lived in Dallas. He was in Houston. I've fought on his cards and stuff like that. So jiu-jitsu cards and ref for him and all kinds of stuff. So I've known Seth for way before Fight to Win Pro, and probably a decade before Fight to Win Pro, and like since 2000, maybe 8 or something like that. I don't know, 9, 10. I don't know. The years get off, but so I've been around that, and I knew that that was a great route. But when I wanted to do it, I wanted to go towards like the ESPN route. I wanted to go towards television. I didn't want to do it like an MMA promoter. I don't have the stuff either. That's not my forte. I'm not there with mixers and mics. I've got 5 different storage facilities with 12 mats in it, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I have a different business format. So I pulled away from that and went more towards the regular jiu-jitsu tournament. So when they came back and wanted to do these team trials and push towards USA Grappling, United World Grappling, I was like, man, we'll help you do that. And then they've already got the big stage at the end with the World Championships. Like I was saying, with United World Grappling. And so they have the rules. And what I was getting back to originally with that super fight thing is the rules. When I was on ESPN, they give us 5 minutes live. If you're doing live, you get 5 minutes. You're not special. You're not the NFL. You don't get 3 hours and go to commercial. You have zilch in the beginning. I mean, some new guys get lucky. That would be awesome. But they're like 5 minutes. I was like, what if I get an eye poke? You got 5 minutes. We go to commercial. Okay. No introduction. No like guy walks onto the mat. Like you got 5 minutes. I was like, damn. All right. So I have to deal with that, but so it was live like that. So I knew from the beginning that the traditional 10-minute format wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to work for the guy sitting at Buffalo Wild Wings that's either used to wrestling or doesn't give a shit about jiu-jitsu. He's going to ask to turn that channel because what is that? I got balloons going off in the background.
I have no clue what that was.
But, it's too long. It's too boring. And physically, 2 men can't go balls to the walls like it's a death match as hard as they can for 10 minutes. And that's why there's a problem with steroids in jiu-jitsu as well, too. Not just the training, but the training for extensively long periods of time.
The rules are crazy sometimes.
Yeah, if they did shorter bursts of rounds, or if they did one smaller round and they went balls to the walls that way, then guys could take it shorter, and it wouldn't be as boring to the spectator either, But if you got 2 dudes in a room and they're like, combat gear, two guys are scrapping, like they're not going to take their sweet 10 minutes. you know?
Yeah, man. And that's important, especially if we're talking about the Olympics. So let me ask you this. Why didn't jiu-jitsu get into the Olympics this time around? Has this all just not been happening long enough? Or like, does it need to go through a certain approval process? Like, can you break us down? Like, how can we get this into the next Olympic Games?
Yeah, and that's 2028 in Los Angeles, one of the meccas of jiu-jitsu, right? So, like, we're definitely hoping that it's in the Olympics in 2028 in California. So, we needed more exposure. That's what they came to us for. You know, they didn't really get any exposure from United World Wrestling. Once United World Grappling broke off, and I do believe the president is from Kazakhstan. Okay. And so it's not like he's an American in charge of it. He's not close to the media. He doesn't nowhere near ESPN. He's nowhere near Flow Grappling. So the president from United World Grappling doesn't get too much American exposure. We lead the media in the jiu-jitsu world. We are where BJJ Fanatics comes out of. We are where Flow comes out of. We are where everybody's main world championships is, right? So we need some of that help and exposure to get out there, especially for people putting America on their back, doing their due diligence, qualifying, then winning a team trials. This year, they're off. Coincidentally, I said the guys from Kazakhstan, they're off to Kazakhstan this year in October. You know, last year they were in Warsaw, Poland. Year before they were in Pontevedra, Spain. It rotates just like the United World Grappling World Championships rotates around the world. And so I think there just needs to be a little bit more support, a little bit more viewership. They just got organized qualifiers and team trials. It was very disorganized before. It's more organized now. We get a little bit more exposure from America. You have a little bit more exposure from other countries, you know? It was great to watch the Asian Pan Ams or Asian Games, however they pronounce the last thing, but it's Pan Pacific or Asian. I mean, if you look at it, you got guys from India going against Mongolia, going against Guam, going against the Philippines. You know, when people say I don't want it to be in the Olympics, I get super bummed. I know that they don't want it to turn into like pickiness of judo, but I think that the pickiness of judo was because of other reasons as well too in the Judo Federation. What I'm talking about, those people wouldn't normally get a chance to face off against each other. You know, the guy in Mongolia isn't always going to get to go. He's not going to fly to IBJJF Worlds. He's not going to always be able to make it. He's got to you know, European or different competitions to get himself some notice, you know? And so this gets the world involved a little bit more.
Yeah. And people don't understand, man. Like, it's a very America-centric view for us to be like, oh, the Olympics don't matter. Like, yeah, they don't matter a whole lot if you live in America and you have endless tournaments to choose from because of guys like you who do great tournaments. But if you live out in freaking Uzbekistan, you might be an incredible jiu-jitsu athlete that no one's ever heard of. And you're at the same level as these high level dudes because you just train with your boys in some fucking dungeon in Uzbekistan throwing down every day. But no one's ever heard of you because no one cares about flying you out to the IBJJF Worlds, but your country will fly you out to the Olympics because they care about the Olympics in other countries. You know what I'm saying? They get paid. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Have the Olympic Training Center. You know, for example, you know, like what if you had a team that trained at the Olympic Training Center? What if you had multiple guys at each weight and trained to get better? Now, what if you didn't even have that year round? What if they went there and 6-week camped it before an event? You know, because you got Masters, Euros, Pan Ams, you got way more than just the World Championships. Just like United World Wrestling travels, right? You have the same thing with United World Grappling. You have more opportunities than just going to United World Grappling World Championships every year. So that's what's really cool as well too. And you get that opportunity. Other people don't realize they're super tough dudes too. Like you look at Russia, dude, they got like combat world sambo champs. I mean, you look at the Dagestanians and the people that are coming out of not just mainland Russia, but coming out of the Dagestan MMA team. And even the jiu-jitsu teams. I do believe that in that Iga, whatever that was called, didn't the Ruski team beat the ADCC team?
Yeah, the Aiga. Yeah. And one of those Russian guys beat Luke Griffith, and he's one of the best guys in the world. I mean, those Russian guys are beasts. I lived over in Germany for a couple of years. I know you've traveled a lot in Europe. Like, there's guys over in Europe that you've never heard of who are absolute monsters. The only reason that you don't know about them is because they can't afford $2,000 to fly out to IBJJF Worlds or ADCC Open or whatever, and they just compete locally because they're broke. You know, they're 20 years old. They don't have money to fly and travel, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's getting all over now. You know, it's like yeah, my last flight was my 131st international flight over to Europe. It's like it's incredible. And I was in Poland. Poland has thick jiu-jitsu, dude. Super strong athletes. By far, in my personal opinion, the strongest human beings on a like just like you can grapple with a
Yeah.
chick and you're like, oh my god, there's a difference in you people. They're super
Yeah.
but super technical too. A lot of schools, but I think because it's like level 5 language, hard as Mandarin, there's not a lot of crossover with English, and there's not a lot of people going back and forth, and so and it's cheaper there. It's they still use Lati instead of the euro dollar, even though part of the European.
Oh yeah. I love Poland.
Yeah, but if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. There's not any American crossover really. I mean, not it's
No.
maybe in some Warsaw, but not in the other parts. You know what I mean? But straight killers on the mat all over.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, we run events in Bulgaria. We run events in Austria, the Netherlands, like all over. So there's killers everywhere. And I personally have either trained or taught jiu-jitsu in all of those countries. And it's like, man, I definitely see it. I hope it does make the Olympics. Other countries that are more socialist and even communist, these types of countries do pay their athletes and put their athletes into the Olympics and into these organizations, and they are funded. I mean, if you look at the team from Russia, for example, they're going to be a fully paid team, right? They're elite level sambo and wrestler and judokas and jujitsu guys and black belts. That's what you're getting, a mixture of that in there, you know. And then they have their team trials, and their best guy makes it too. It's not like they're sending chumps, and these guys get to stay and they're paid and they train and live, and this is what they do day in and day out, right? Like this October is the World Championships in Kazakhstan, and it's the first year that I think that Russia's allowed back because of the war in Ukraine, and that's our hardest competition there. You know, I I do believe the Miao brothers have represented Brazil in terms of Brazilians being. So I don't know who has qualified this year. Sometimes we don't really get the info from them, but I'd like to see who the Brazilians are putting out as well too. But it's not like the Brazilians have never put or have put out an absolute zero name, big name person team. They put big. I would say that Joao Miao, that name is bigger than the American names. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
that
Crazy.
Brazil's already got guys representing, and they know on the back end some of them have done that already. And I'm interested to see who they're putting in this year.
This is great. Well, we're gonna have you back closer to the next Olympics for sure, and hopefully we can see like where this is at. Dude, I got one last question for you. A lot of people that I see online and people I've talked to, they worry that if jiu-jitsu gets in the Olympics, it's gonna have a similar fate as judo, where suddenly there's like one rule set that comes out that everyone has to follow, and you know suddenly we can't do wrestling takedowns or we can't do leg locks or some bullshit. Like, what's the solution to that? What's your take on that?
Now, I started this conversation with saying that I'm also in the skateboard world, right? Skateboarding is in its second Olympics. The first Olympics, the Japan Olympics, it was in 2020. Actually, it was in 2021 because of COVID. So skateboarding is just like jujitsu. Uh, in the sense that it's a punk rock sport, it's a subculture, and it has a bunch of others, right? It's got X Games, you know, it's got Vans Warped Tour, it's got all these different events, and then you got the Olympics, right? So look at jiu-jitsu, ADCC, AGF, Naga, IBJF, you know, all these different ones, and then you got the Olympics. Do you think that all of us promoters are just going to throw up our hands because it makes the Olympics? Do you think that anybody is going to give a crap about what rules are put in the Olympics when it comes to their personal company? No, it's going to be, they have beach wrestling. They have beach wrestling. Do you know what the beach wrestling rules are? No, but it got in the Olympics, right? And they're gonna have the funding and the ability to do that. Now, what we want is we want jujitsu in the Olympics, grappling in the Olympics. I do like that the gi and no gi is the same set. You know what I mean? But I just disagree with people saying that they're worried about the rules because you're going to have the choice from all of us promoters anyways. None of us are going to throw our hands up. People, I don't think the IBJJF or ADCC is going to change diddly squat about anything if it makes the Olympics. It's going to give us all better exposure. That's the truth of the fact of the matter. That's why CGI is doing what it's doing to ADCC. That is why people do certain things. Some people just hate on people and they try and attack. I mean, I'm the event promoter. I've watched people try and put their dates in front of my dates. I've watched people try and poach my rep. You know, there's a dirty way to do business, which a lot of people do. And there's, you know, that's something that Chris and I aren't about. You know what I mean? It's why I do support the fact that people want to put Team USA on their back and go compete. And that's why I want to say, you know what? We're going to give you the best foot forward and let you compete under that rule set and send you off in a proper way with qualifier matches, team trial matches. Then you guys can have some opportunity instead of doing random qualifiers and being sent off to Kazakhstan.
Man, it makes a lot of sense. And I think when you look at it like a business, it really makes a lot more sense because from my view, the whole thing with judo is honestly just bad entrepreneurship because I could start up a judo tournament company today and say, hey, here's the rules. You can grab the legs. And sure, I'm not under the International Judo Federation, but who cares? I can still have great medals and a great customer experience and we can do judo. And this is America. No one's going to come in and say, oh, you're not following the IJF rule set. You got to close up shop. You know, at the end of the day, business can do whatever. And if people aren't doing that, then like that's on judo entrepreneurs, you know, go start a new tournament series or something, you know?
They got to a large organization in a different format. You know, judo got to where they are in a different way that jiu-jitsu got to where it's at in America. You know, everyone has their own path, and that's another important factor. Um, but I just think it would be positive exposure. You know, as some of the people, like I said, can put their mentality to, hey, there are phenomenal grapplers in different parts of the world. This can grow and elevate grappling all over the world, and people from multiple countries can then have the opportunity to face each other that we would not normally see. And only good things are going to come from that. I mean, you know, we've got a lot of famous Australians. We got a lot of famous, you know, look at Adam Wardinsky just came out of Poland and wrecked shot. And he just didn't come out of there. He's been training hard, but you know, there's a lot of opportunity I think that could happen worldwide and evolution that can come through grappling in the Olympics. And I don't think that the entrepreneurs of the game are going to throw their hands up. I don't know why people are saying that. Maybe just because I'm a business owner that's you're talking to me right now, but it's like we're not going to quit anything if it makes the Olympics. You know, I mean, and here's the other thing. Nobody agrees on any freaking rules anyway.
No, they don't. Probably never will.
Dude, if I adjust my rules by this much, you realize the fire that I start in jiu-jitsu? People are so passionate about the rules. That's why I think they're also kind of against it. You know, it's like, but you have sub only. You have ones where you can slap each other. You got ones where double guard pulling till death.
Don't forget about in the car.
Yeah, in the car, you got, but you know, even in terms of regular tournaments, you know, but it's you got quintets, you got super fights, you got regular tournament formats, you got.
Don't forget about the pit. The pit. You got the pit now too.
You know what? Here, I'll be honest with you. They're doing that, and I always thought that that was phenomenal, and I wanted to do that a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, I wanted to do that a long time ago because the number one thing that is hated in jiu-jitsu is people who avoid the fight.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care if you're a guard puller or a top guy. That's the one thing that we all agree on. Don't disengage and avoid the fight. You know, eventually you got to win by submitting them, you know? So,
and the resets. People hate the resets too. You know, the pit makes it so you don't have so many referee resets because they're going out of bounds. And that keeps it a lot more enjoyable, I think.
Yeah, and it keeps it a little bit away from the corner fight. As a guy, I've cornered guys in the UFC and down to the amateur level. And so I've cornered a Brazilian MMA fights before I was heavily into AGF. And there's massive tactics on people being pinned into the corner. And so that angle, instead of it being 90, that angle being like this, it helps the grappling continue and it doesn't turn into a pin match. And if there's seating above it, I'm telling you, man, I've already I go over this stuff for a year. I daydream. I try and ride that energy wave. Like, all right, let's try this. You know, I come with a rule change or anything like that. I try and study matches first and try and look at it with the attention of that before moving on to it. So with the crowd above the angle, you get elevated seat. You can still see all the mats instead if it's 90 degrees.
Dude, that makes a lot of sense. Well, hey, Brandon, I really appreciate you time. Do you have time for one more question or do you got to go?
No, go ahead, dude. It's actually, like I said, we're getting over a rainy day, so I'm just waiting for my.
Okay. Because I realized that I failed to ask you this question that I had for you, which is what is this rule set like that is being tried out for the Olympics? Can you break down what these rules are?
If I want to give a quick synopsis of it, okay, so and people are gonna say it's wrestling based, but like I was saying with the whole ESPN spiel and getting into all that, it's speed based, it's attack based too. It's not just wrestling based. Okay, so keep that in mind. I think that a lot of people will see top game or takedown type things, and assume it's just wrestling. So they're gonna give you. They're going to score extra. And I don't remember if it's 1 or 2 off the top of my head. I forget. But if you score within the first 3 seconds, so if it encourages somebody to shoot right off the bat. Okay. So you get that. You get a point for a submission attempt, a strong submission attempt. And they have clear guidelines. Like all subjective. We've had a submission advantage and a point. Now we hold a point at AGF as well. I've run thousands of matches. You just have to draw a line in the sand with the referees and train them and show them the spot in which it's a point in which it's not. The only point that I think that people truly can argue about anything is like arm in guillotines, right? We know at a certain point with the Darce, his arm's closed off. We know the Gator. We know that arm's closed off. We know an arm is straight. We know a leg is straight. We know a heel hook is caught. Right? He's not loose. His legs aren't loose. No, he got a heel hook with a honey hole. We know he's freaking caught. This isn't like, oh, I'm flexible. You can be flexible, buddy, but you got caught, right? So there's a certain point that there's a catch, and so I think that I like that as well, too. A lot of people argue that it's subjective. I don't believe it is. I only believe it is where you can't see people or talk to people. And so in terms of like that arm and guillotine, I was saying. What else do we got? So they got a submission attempt. Oh, it's not a guard pull unless you break like the 90-degree plane. So you could sit butterfly and still be engaged and it not be a guard pull. Like, which I like because guys who sit butterfly guard vertically are not playing a passive game, right? They're sitting up. They usually want some kind of inside or outside space. They want their foot on their hips. They want to grab you, drag you, grab your hip, something. They want contact with you. They're not digressing. So, but once you go past that 90-degree plane and you start to go backwards, you will get a takedown.
Yeah. So it's point based. It's not submission only, the rule set.
Correct. But so if you do pull guard, you will get a point taken from you for pulling guard.
Good stuff. So I like it. And so you use the same sort of stuff, like 2 points for side, 3 or 4 for mount, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but similar, I think, more to ADCC in the sense of and what we've done before. I've talked to my partner about going back to it, but that is like having points for side control, for example, in the sense that a takedown and landing in your guard is not as good as a takedown that lands in side control, right? You have to put the extra effort to do that. That's not luck. Like you intentionally have to clear your legs. This also helps the guard player, right? If I'm going to sweep somebody, do I want to sweep and land in your guard, or do I want to sweep you and then land in side control? So they value positions more. They also have restart positions. Fila used to have that. So I could be laying on my back in butterfly with my knees up. You're sitting in front of me with your hand on my knees, and there's like a seat belt with no hooks where we're both sitting on our knees as a back recreation. There's a few different, like my hands are posted out, your hands are posted out in side control. So they're like neutral type positions, which is interesting because something that I train my referees on is saying verbiage. Time. You got your left underhook. You got your right hand on the cross face. You got your right leg in the guard. Let's go half guard. Let's go over here, recenter. And you go back to recenter. And then I have my referees repeat that same verbiage because some people switch sides. 1, because they're trying to cheat, or 2, because they're a freaking white belt and their adrenaline's dumping and they forgot what side they're on, right? So for both reasons, we try and say it. But people also sometimes, will grab a collar instead of that cross face. Like the upper belts will definitely cheat when you try and do a reset. And we know a little bit makes a big difference. So it is interesting for them to have those neutral, kind of like EBI type overtime. They have that as overtime as well too, not just restarts. They have a coin flip and all that. So they have an overtime. They don't.
Oh, so they do have an overtime as well.
They have an overtime, but they also have a tiebreaker system. And if that tiebreaker system is exhausted, then you have an overtime.
Okay.
Yeah, but you do have a lot of similar things that you'll see in AGF, like we have last to score. We have the person with the longest ride time. We have similar things like that we've taken from being around them for a couple of years. But so they have a tiebreaker and then an overtime, so there's never a referee's decision. So and you get a little bit of both. People can do a traditional overtime and they get a tiebreaker. Like they got some good answers for people, man.
That's good stuff. I like it. I'm not a huge fan of the submission only right to the overtime, just because then I feel like people just ride out the regulation time just to get to the overtime.
Call stalling like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, I mean, the overtime thing can be great if it's like at PGF where they had really strong stalling calls and stuff like that. But PGF is kind of different because you're trying to like score a point based off of how much, how you're able to submit people, and it's over like this period of time. And then they have a different way of doing it that like kind of gets rid of the stalling. But I really like points the best because it's basically, I don't know, I just think it makes the most sense.
Did you wrestle?
No, I did judo though.
Okay, so like judo, jiu-jitsu, even pride, right? Not jiu-jitsu, but wrestling. If it has stalling calls, it's going to push the pace.
For sure. You have to.
If it has calls, then it's going to push the pace. Yeah. I do think that they're stalling. I've been taught stalling, dude. I've been taught by coaches before how to stall, specifically for a certain tournament as well too. And I also think that it has to, like, again, it goes back to the length. Yeah, you could have sub only where two dudes are just gonna, it turns into a lot of butt scooting unless you get like Canuto and Jimenez together,
really
that's gonna be
fire guys. Yeah,
it's gonna be a fun sub only. But if you get a guy who wants to slowly work his grips or two butt scooters, it's proved to be thoroughly not entertaining and also not realistic.
No, it's not realistic at all.
It goes away from being a combat sport.
Yeah, people think that sub only, no time limit is the most realistic, but no, it's actually the least realistic because people forget that in jiu-jitsu we don't have punches. So it's inherently less realistic. You know what I mean? But dude, we got to wrap this up. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Before we leave, is there anything you want to promote? Like, where can people find you if they want to learn more about this?
At the AGF and on Instagram, just go to AGF on Instagram. We got the links to everything there. But yeah, man, go check out USA Grappling. Go support them. Go look at United World Grappling. Yes, it could be a shameless plug for AGF, but really go. If we're going to have this conversation and you viewers literally just made it to the end of us two dudes talking for 40 minutes, go check out United World Grappling. Go check out the World Championships. Go see what it looks like. And go holler for support from Flo and from other people that can give it the boost that it needs. Right now, actually, the show that is that they've been filming with, they're going in not contracts, but negotiations with television series that they're trying to put it on the different shows. You got guys like Ryan, what's his name? Ryan Reynolds.
Oh yeah.
He's I think that soccer show promotion, right? And then you got LeBron James, who's got a production company. So these guys that are in Los Angeles that are a part of USA Grappling are trying to get it on a higher level when it comes to production. They just had a production crew go out to the Northwest and cover Nathan Orchard and cover different people at different locations. So it'll get that exposure.
That's awesome.
So go check it out. If people look at it, then it gets it.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, Brandon, thanks for coming on and doing the show. I'll put all the links down below. So if you're listening, go check it out. Dude, thank you. We'll do this again. Appreciate you.
Sounds good.